myth about myths, and I'm going to minimize this so I won't necessarily see you all, but I know you're there. I hear you breathing. All right. So the myth about myths, part 2. I'm not going to go over part 1, but so when we talk about myths, it's a word that originates from the Greek word mythos, and it means word or tale or true narrative, and referring not only to the means by which it's transmitted, but also being rooted in truth. So a myth is not something that's a lie. A myth is something that's rooted in truth. It also is closely related to the word maio, meaning to teach or to initiate into the mysteries. And this is how that word was interpreted during Homer's time, who lived in the 7th or 8th century BC when he was composing the Iliad. He meant to convey a truth. And we get that definition from John Black, an engineer, researcher, and author. And so when we talk about myths, sometimes we think about allegories and metaphors. So just briefly, and we said this last time in the myths about myths part 1, an allegory is a piece of literature where characters, images, or even acts are symbols. And then a metaphor is a literary device which makes a comparison between two unrelated things. So now when we think about viewing different texts and different writings, biblical or other ancient texts, scrolls, etc., these are a good way to think about them when you're examining them. So you can take it literally, you can take it historically, but sometimes it refers to something that's cosmological. And then other times it's something that's symbolic, metaphysical. And then it's also mythological, allegorical. It can be anatomical. And we're going to get into that a little later. And it can be anagogical. And anagogical means, it actually refers to ascension. So this is why sometimes, we have so many issues with the scriptures, the texts, because, it's like the blind men describing an elephant. It just depends on where you are, just depends on where you're feeling. Some people, they're at the tusk, so they think an elephant is a spear. Some people are at the ear, so they think it's a fan. Some people are on the side of it, so they think it's a wall. Some people are at their feet, and so they think it's a trunk. Some people are at the tail, they think it's a rope. Some people are at the trunk, they think it's a snake. And each one is right from their point of view, but in reality, they don't see the whole picture, so they can't fully describe what an elephant is. Now, anagogical refers to ascension. So I saw this on Facebook. Somebody had posted this image on the left, and it said the original peace sign of our ancestors of Kemet, otherwise known as Egypt. And so I sent that to Brother Fahmy, to see, hey, do you know anything about that? Do you know what that is? That true? This is the original peace sign. And then just recently, I saw this image on the right saying that's a sign for peace or oneness. And it also adds the addition of the Ashanti, which we're studying the Ashanti language of tree on Saturdays, every other Saturday on this station, on this Zoom. So, but Fahmy wrote, and he said this, he said, these are the two fingers of ascension. The two fingers indicate the process of immortality. They belong to Horus initially. So we're gonna follow up on that a little further in our presentation here. But so Anagogical is ascension. So let's just review that just quickly. So you can look at things literally, historically, cosmologically, symbolic, metaphysical, mythological, allegorical, anatomical, and anagogical. All right. Any questions thus so far?
Nope.
And this is where most of us are. You know, we're trying to define it, and it's just where we are. So Islam defines it this way, Christianity defines it this way, and then you got all these subgroups, Catholic, Baptist, holiness, you know, they have their interpretations. Then you have Buddhists, then you have, you know, and everybody's where they're at, but may not necessarily have the full picture. So now we're going to talk about the Helios Biblos. The Holy Bible derives from the Greek words Helios Biblos. Helios means the sun. It's a Greek word for the sun. And Biblos is derived from an ancient Kemetic word for papyrus, which means paper. It's those papyrus reeds that were made into paper and scrolls. So Holy Bible means sunbook or compiled papers, and represents the knowledge of the children of the sun as recorded by the original inhabitants of Kemet. So the biblical Jesus, for the most part, is the sun in the sky. And here you can find these passages in the Hebrew canon. John 3:19, I am the light of the world. What is the light of the world but the sun? Psalms 84:11, the Lord God is a sun, S-U-N. Deuteronomy 4:24, God is a consuming fire. Malachi 4:2, the Son of Righteousness, the S-U-N of righteousness. And then that passage continues, the Son of Righteousness will take you up in its healing wings. And we're going to show that a little later. And then John 12:46, a light unto the world. So that's referring to the sun. So we have these myths. We have these allegories of the sun. So we have Christmas, which is a word that I have yet to find in the Bible. But we know, astronomically speaking, that the sun at December 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, these are the shortest days of the year. It begins on the 21st, the winter solstice, and then it's in kind of like a stasis period for 3 days. And then on December 25th, it noticeably lengthens, and it says the sun is born. And so that's why that date is chosen for the birth of God's son. And then if we look here in this diagram, we see the sun, and here is the star Sirius, the star of the east. This is the brightest star in the sky. and the three wise men are pointing. These are the three stars in the constellation Orion's belt, and they're pointing to Sirius. And then also, now this we normally think of at the time of Easter, but it really happens in winter. So the sun goes to its southernmost point, which is referred to as the Southern Cross, and then it goes up its ecliptic orbit and is crucified on the bisecting lines of its ecliptical orbit and the horizon. So that's one aspect. And here we see it again. You know, we just went over this on the left here in black and white. And then here in the middle is a papyrus, which has a very similar story conveyed in pictograph. You have Aset. You can always tell it's Aset because she has a throne on her head, and her sister Nebhet. And there at the cross, so to speak, which in this case is an Ankh, there when the sun rises is resurrected. And then, you know, many years later, we see a European version of that story. And now, I used to hate this because, you know, we had this at my house when I was growing up. And, you know, a new convert is the most zealous. So when I found out about things, you know, at an early age, I would complain to my parents, why do we have this image up in our house? And they just ignored me. But when you look at it from an astronomical point of view, you see that Jesus or the Christ is the sun, and these are always broken up into groups of three, 4 groups of 3, representing the spring, the summer, the autumn, the winter. And then if you want to break it down even further, you can do it in the astrological signs. So you can see here's Gemini. He's holding up 2 hands, you know, like the twin. Virgo, this apostle seems sort of effeminate, you know, and Virgo is the virgin. And then Scorpio here. Now, Scorpio, you know, when the sun moves in Scorpio, you know, that's when it starts to die. And so, you know, like when a scorpion bites you, it leaves like these marks on you that look like lips. And so, you know, they say Judas, you know, kissed Jesus, you know, and, you know, that was just so he was identified by the Romans, and they took him and, you know, well, you know the story. All right. So now at daybreak, move this out of my way here. I don't know if you all can see that little thing. So, well, I see something in the chat. Let me see if I can, if there's a question. Okay. Thank you. Hemit Sa Kemet. All right. I'm going to ask you about that, Tyrone, a little bit later on. Okay. So, so at daybreak, this wonderful newborn child, God's son, is born again. Horus is risen, or Hor is risen. Even today, when the sun comes up, we see it on the Horus risen or Hor risen. You know, these words are still in existence. His life is divided into 12 parts or 12 steps across heaven each day. If you look at the word Horus, and the word hours, you see how similar they are? You know, we're still using the terminology. It's in plain sight, but we don't know it necessarily. We don't know what to look for, and so you know it's kind of oblivious to us. So this origin of so this 12 steps, you know, 12 hours of the sun is the origin of the 12-step program. Horus, the newborn sun, is the bringer of light. In Latin, the bringer of light is Lucius, or Lucifer, or Luke. God's son brought his wonderful light to the world and distributed it over 12 months. Even in the movie Star Wars, the central character is Luke Skywalker. And, you know, that first movie that they showed, his nemesis was Darth Vader, you know, darkness. So, you know, they're telling these stories to us. We just don't necessarily pick up on it because we're not aware of the signs. So God's son had 12 companions or helpers that assisted his life-saving work. So it was God's son had 12 apostles or 12 months that followed him religiously throughout his life. And incidentally, you know, this is why the American jury system has 12 jurors who help bring the truth to light with the light of truth. Keep in mind, God's son symbolically represents the light of truth, but was condemned by his enemies who could not endure the light of truth in their life. And when we are confronted with harsh realities of life, the light of truth, which we do not wish to face and which runs counter to our views, such truth is judged in your mind or judged in your temple area and put to death in your head. You know, we put these things to death in our head. You know, this is kind of like what we were saying in the message Sunday. You know, sometimes a good idea can be trampled on. You know, you can talk yourself out of a good idea. And, you know, even in your head, they call these two places on the side of your head the temples. So therefore, God's son, the truth, the light is put to death at Golgotha. Golgotha, if you look that up, means place of the skull, located someplace between your ears. This putting to death the light of truth in your mind is accompanied by two thieves: regret for the past and fear of the future. And so a lot of us have regret for the past, and then in turn we have fear from the future. We're like the Christ between the two thieves. And of course, God's son goes to his death wearing a corona, Latin for a crown of thorns. And here's that corona here. And let me just go back here. Now you can find more information about this if you search this gentleman here, Jordan Maxwell. He has a lot of knowledge in these arenas, Jordan Maxwell. And here we have Kheper, the bringer into being. And if you look at Kheper, the dung beetle, here on the left, and if you compare it on the right, an upward view of the skull, they are really similar, aren't they? So when you bring things into being, it starts in your head, in your mind. And this is what Kheper does. Now, we're going to talk about some anatomical things. And the next part of this information is going to be going to come from George W. Carey's work, The Word Made Flesh. Now, right here, I'm going to pause. If there's any comments or questions, I'm going to give you an opportunity now. Anyone? Okay.
No, I was just saying that Sa is Orion.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Sahu, yes. Yes. Thank you for that. So this is a very interesting book, God, Man, The Word Made Flesh by George W. Carey. And, you know, this is being really articulated by a gentleman who is of an Italian ancestry, but grew up in Australia by the name of Santos Bonacci. So, truth in pictures. So, Joseph is the pineal gland. Mary is the pituitary gland. And the spinal cord is the River Jordan. So Joseph is the pineal gland. Mary is the pituitary gland. And the spinal cord is the River Jordan. So you've heard of Kundalini, many of you. So what that involves is right here at the base of your spine is an energy that's talked about as being like a coiled serpent. And with some certain breathing techniques and different ways of living and eating and thinking and meditating, people are able to raise that energy up the spine and ascend. The claustrum secretes oil. So the claustrum is up here in the brain. It secretes an oil once a month in your body that the ancients called the Christos, or Christ. Remember, Christ coming from Christos means oil, you know, anointed by oil. So they talk about raising the chrism. So like we talked about, the pineal gland, Joseph, secretes the milk. The pituitary gland, Mary, secretes the honey. So your body is the land of milk and honey. You don't have to go anywhere. And some are saying that this is where, you know, they come from the claustrum. And so some say this is where the concept of Santa Claus comes from, because he descends down the chimney bringing many gifts. Mm-hmm. So these two sacred oils, the milk and the honey, travel down to the solar plexus via the pneumogastric nerve, or it's also called the vagus nerve. And this nerve wanders throughout your body and touches all of your organs. So this psychophysical germ, the fruit of the tree of life, is born in the solar plexus in Bethlehem, which is also called the house of bread, in a manger. So your solar plexus, your stomach, it's the house of bread. And then it goes down the eta on the right side, the eta on the right side, the pringula on the left, the blue and the red nerves, where they cross the medulla oblongata, and then the crucifixion takes place, takes 2.5 days, and then it is magnified 1,000-fold. So, and then, you know, another aspect to that is there are 33 vertebrae and 12 cranial nerves. And all of this is in the allegory, the mythos contained within the so-called Gospels.
I have a question.
Yes, who's that?
That's John.
Hey, John.
So I'm trying to get what you're really trying to say here with these comparisons or to the body and the various things you said about the pineal gland being Joseph and so on and so forth. What is the point of what you're saying?
The point I'm saying is as above, so below. Actually, I'm going to get closer to the point, I hope, as we go along. But essentially, you know, your body is a microcosm of the solar system and the universe. And so it's all going on in here. So at age 12, that's when these things start happening. When these two fluids, the milk and the honey from the pineal and the pituitary gland, they go down into your solar plexus and they form a seed, and then they descend down to the sacred plexus, which is at the very bottom, the sacrum, which is at the very bottom of your spine. And then, what happened?
Yeah, we lost it. There we go.
How did that, I don't even know what went on. I don't know how. I'm confused here. I'm
some kind of energy flow there.
Yeah. What's going
So
on?
what pushes that energy back up once it goes down? It begins in the pituitary and the penile and descends down into the sacrum. So does it typically stay there, or is it on some kind of cycle that will begin to ascend back up again? Or is it something that the individual has to force back up through meditation and rituals?
So,
Good question.
good question. So, you know, in one of our breathing exercises that we've done on Sunday, where we you know, inhale and bring our breath, you know, we can constrict our you know, anal outlet and push the energy up, you know, up our body. That's one technique in order to do that. Also, not consuming alcohol, because that destroys the seed. Also, having sex at the wrong time. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why this is changing. Let me stop sharing my screen and start over again. Yeah, let's see. I want to stop sharing here. Continue. Okay, let me try it again. I don't know what's happening. I don't know how that occurred. Where was I? Here, I believe. That's better. Okay, so and having sex at the wrong time. Now, what does that mean? So when the moon is in the same sign as your sun sign, it's in there for like a period of 2 days, you should refrain from having sex, because again, that affects the seed. Also, gluttony affects the seed. So there are certain things that are prescribed in order to raise this. I'm going to skip that. Let's see. So, you know, this was something that the early Christians knew. the early Christians, there was a group of them, they were called Gnostics. And that word Gnostic means to know. You know, they weren't believers, which what Christians became. They were people who knew. And these scriptures were written in parables, allegories, and fables to preserve the knowledge. Let's see. So earlier, and I just want us to just pay attention right now to these three drawings at the top. So here you see Chehudi, and he's holding these two staffs with serpents going up the staffs. This would be the Ida and the Pringala along the two sides of your spine. And then here, this one in the center is called the Burdette. The Burdette is, you know, like a resurrected consciousness. And you can see this on many of the monuments in Kemet. And you see the serpents on either side of that resurrection. And today, when you go into any medical place or deal with any medicine, you see this thing called the caduceus, and here are the serpents going up the pole with the, you know, with the higher consciousness at the top. Skip all that. So every 28 and a half days, when the moon is in the sign of the zodiac that your son was born, there's a seed, a cycle, physical germ born in the solar plexus, the manger, and this seed is taken up by the nerves and branches of the pneumogastric nerve and becomes the fruit of the tree of life, or the tree of good and evil. So I'm going to leave that, but I suggest that you get that book by Carey on the Word Made Flesh. Now here, you know, can somebody, John, you might have to mute yourself. That might, I suspect, be coming from you. Yeah. So this here is showing the Annunciation, the virgin, you know, the virgin getting impregnated, and then having the child. And hold on just a second. Might have to
Mute everybody.
Yeah, everybody mute. Yeah.
We're still getting it.
Yeah, I know. So I'm trying to. I don't know how to mute everyone. I'm sorry, I can't do that. But anyway.
You may have to call John on his phone and tell him that he's not muted.
Yeah, I don't.
Somebody can call John.
Yeah, I don't have John's number.
Me neither.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's try to work around it as best we can. So here, and now this is in the temple of Hatshepshut in Kemet. Here we see Chehudi announcing to the virgin she's going to have the baby, and then we see Khnum, the potter, and Het-Haru or Hathor impregnating the virgin. Here she is sitting on the table, the birthing seat. Here she is giving, you know, the child is born, and here there are people providing, you know, adoration to the child. So the story that's in the Gospels is very old, and it is not you know, that was not something new. It was something that our ancestors put in stone. And the way that this comes to us, you know, when you go to this temple, you can put some paper on it, and you can take a pencil, graphite pencil, and you know, scribble across it, and these images will be revealed after you do it. So that's how they got this image here. So now, many of us we're changing course a little bit. So many of us are familiar with the Lord's Prayer, but you know, Jesus didn't speak English. You know, he didn't speak French. He didn't speak German. He spoke in a language called Aramaic, and he probably spoke Hebrew, and he probably spoke Greek. But people in the area at the time he's supposed to have existed spoke Aramaic. And, you know, here are some references in the Gospels where he's using Aramaic words. So historians, archaeologists, and cultural anthropologists are universally in agreement that Aramaic was common colloquial language in Egypt. Hold on just a second, gang. Let's see. Where's John?
Who's that? How are you? I'm doing well, sir. And yourself?
Ah. Okay.
Yeah, there's John, huh?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all right. He didn't do it on purpose, I'm sure. All right. So getting back to Aramaic. So most people that study this agree that Jesus was speaking Aramaic at the time. It's very similar to Hebrew, but with many words and phrases that were borrowed from other languages and cultures, especially Babylonian. And this here shows you the evolution of how languages go. So you have the Chamatic language over here. Then you have something called Hieratic, which is actually has the glyphs, but it has some cursive writing. And then it evolved to Demotic, which is completely cursive. And then, but then it got passed on to Biblos, which is like Lebanon and Syria and the Sinai. And then it went down into the Canaanite alphabet. And this got passed on down by Cadmus to the Greeks. And this Canaanite language went on to become Old Hebrew. And it went to the Phoenicians, who are really, their name is Carthaginians, and they were they left from Lebanon and Syria and landed in present-day Tunisia and formed that Carthaginian or Carthagis civilization. And then that's where you get the Punic language. But if you look on this side, you can see it coming directly and forming Aramaic, and from Aramaic, you have this Imperial Aramaic, you have Syriac, Nabatean, Jewish. So all these languages, you can see the flow of them. So to just give you an idea of maybe too much, I guess. So here's the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic. That's how it's written. And I'm not sure. I'm going to play this, and if let me know if you can hear this. It's not too loud, but this is the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic. This is how it sounds.
شغلا خوبين أي كان طبخنا شغلا خياوين ولا تقلن نسيونا إلا بصا من بيشة وتضليله هاي ملجوتة وخيلة تشبخنا العالم آمين آمين.
So this is what it means in English. I'm going to move on from this slide. But so this is what it actually means. O cosmic birther, from whom the breath of life comes, who fills all the realms of sound, light, and vibration. May your light be experienced in my utmost holiness. Your heavenly domain approaches. Let your will come true in the universe, all that vibrates, just as on earth, that is material and dense. Give us wisdom, understanding, assistance for our daily need. Detach the fetters of faults that bind us, or karma, like we let go of the guilt of others. Let us not be lost in superficial things, materialism, common temptations, but free us from that which keeps us from our true purpose. For you come, the working will, the lively strength to act, the song that beautifies all and renews itself from age to age. Amen. So that's the original meaning of the Lord's Prayer. Totally different than the King James Version. So now I want to move on to Wsir, sometimes called Asar, sometimes called Osiris. And here we see him with these two staffs. And what does it say in some place in the Bible, Psalms 23? Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thy rod and thy staff, he's holding them. And we saw that, they came out with a live version, but the Lion King is really kind of a story that encapsulates the Wsirian drama. So Mufasa is Wsir or Sar. His wife is Aset. Simba is Heru. Rafiki is Tahuti. Some of you may recall that there's two aspects to Tahuti. Sometimes he's depicted as an ibis bird, but other times he's depicted as a baboon. It symbolizes wisdom. And then Scar, the evil brother, is Set. And I'm not so clear on these other pronouncements, but all of this is very interesting. I recognized it immediately when I used to read this story to my sons and, watch the movie with them, 50 plus times. Wsir, and this is how I want everyone that is associated with Wose to be able to recognize when you see this. Let's see, somebody has something in the chat. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, totally different. Yeah. So the person is asking, is the child Hatshepshut? Possibly. I'm not sure, Tyrone. Possibly. So here, whenever you see this is how you write Osiris, or more properly Wsir, and some people have refer to it as Asar, and he has Aset. He has the throne in his name. So So it's this throne, the eye, and this glyph here is representative of a masculine neter. So if you saw one that was sitting in this pose and didn't have a beard and his locks were longer, that would be feminine. So why is Wsir painted green? And here, you know, Wsir a lot of times is painted green, and here he has the Waz staff, and then, you know, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And he's wearing, which is really like the origin of the Confederate flag. Here he's wearing that X, you know, and it has like symbols that look like stars in it. He's seated on Mot. He's seated on the square, and this symbol here, Simantawe, means unity, bringing together opposites. So a lot of things are being said here. And so Ani and his wife, they have progressed on, and they're able to come before the judge. So he's originally painted green because he represents man migrating through cycles of consciousness. He is the seed, the self, the sun, the universe, enabling consciousness to express itself as a manifestation in the physical and earthly realm. As such, he is associated with all phases of the agricultural process and to the symbolism of the tree of life. And here he is again, painted green. Here he is again, you know, representing vegetation. He's expressed as green in many depictions to represent these associations, and the relationship to the fertility of the earth is showing his dual feminine aspect. There's a masculine and a feminine aspect to even Wsir. And it is through the portal of our solar plexus, the lion's gate, that our true heart center, that we traverse the dimensions from spirit to matter, from unity consciousness to individual consciousness and back again. And this is the hero's journey that is likened to the path of the sun across the sky. Again, it's all about the sun, moon, and stars. So these are the evolutions of his name: Wsir, Asar, Osar, Asar, Osiris. And we come to this position now. We talked about this in an earlier class, the Hindu position. Thank you, Katabasi, for clarifying that. Here, when people took an oath, this was the position that they would get in. And here we see even old George copying that. And this was our speaker last week. You know, he's all over, and he goes to all the places in Kemet. And here he is. I forget which tomb this is, but here he is demonstrating that Hindu position. Okay, just a minute. Somebody's saying in the chat, no video. He's not getting, Kalahari's not able to see. I'm sorry. Can everybody else see? Okay, all right. Sorry about that, Kat. I don't, Kalahari, I don't know how to help you at this point. Now, this is the temple of Abydos or Abdu. And when you get in there, here I am in there, and you know, there's an opening in the ceiling where you can get the sun. You know, it's not there all the time, but I happen to get there, and here I am receiving the sun. And this is another place within the temple of Abydos. And you know, that picture that we showed earlier of Tahuti with the with the two staffs and the serpents going up. It's also here, and many other beautiful pieces of art telling the story. Now, many of us are familiar. Sometimes, you know, you'll see this and they say, oh, well, look, the Kemites, they had airplanes and they had, you know, flying machines. But so if you look on here, you know, that's the way it looks. But these things were written twice. And so on the other side, this is how it really looks. So it's not spaceships or anything spooky. You know, they just carved over them, you know, and just over time, this is what happens. Now, behind the Temple of Abydos is this place called the Wsir, and this is pre-dynastic, and the construction is totally different. These are huge, monstrous stones that are you know, stacked up together with the fitted together with the utmost of care. It's called the Wsir, and there's still water that comes up, seeps up in there from the Nile. Now I want to talk a little bit about the Confederate flag and its origins. So when we look at these different examples here, we see the cross of St. George's, England. We see the cross of St. Andrew is Scotland, cross of St. Patrick is Ireland, and then the Union Jack, the United Kingdom. But when we look at how the mummies were wrapped, it's very similar to this Union Jack. And since this comes before that, I would have to say that, you know, the people in the United Kingdom got their flag from the way that the mummies were wrapped. Now here's this symbol, you know, that's a symbol of hatred. If you woke up and found this in front of your house, you would, you know, you would want to take it down. You would be concerned, you know, some racist had gotten, you know, on your property. But when we look here at this diagram, so, okay, he has an erect phallus, so we're all adults here, so we won't, you know, people won't trip out of that. But here again is that X. What do they say? What do the Southerners say? They say that the South will rise again. And this is what happens to a lot of brothers when the sun rises. You know, the South will rise again. What this says is that Osiris, Lord of the West, the great netter in the sacred place, who is Atum Khepri. That's what this is translated in saying. But when we also look at this, and when we compare it to the so-called hypotenuse of the right angle, we see what Pythagoras was studying. This is something that you get as a Mason in your third degree of Freemasonry, the understanding of this. But here we see the triangle, and here the male, the female, the Horus is the product, and the Aset or Isis is the female. And then I was watching Astra Quasi, and he said, you know, because he was showing this diagram, he was looking at the X and he was looking at the phallus, and he said, so this Cairo symbol, he says, now I understand where this Cairo symbol comes from.
What part, Baba, does this serpent play that's on the far left?
Okay, so here it is. You anticipated what I was going to say next.
Okay, then.
All right, you're getting in tune. Here. So it
Yeah.
says, Osiris Atum traveling through the chaos and darkness from which life will spring again. Usually Osiris is the self-generating with his phallus as Atum. The serpent is Apet, god of the formlessness, god of the formless that surrounded the physical world. The inscription reads, Osiris, Lord of the West, the great god in the sacred land, who is Atum Khepri. So it represents the Apet, the formlessness around the space.
Okay.
And here again, now every time I see this one, it reminds me of Dr. Obenga, this per where we can see the evolution from Ankh to Cairo, and they're using it in Rome, and how it sort of devolved to the cross. Let me check the chat. I see some people beaming in the sun. Yes, that's right. I'm beaming in the sun. All right. And I just want to show one more thing on the Ankh. Now, this is a petroglyph that was found in South Africa that's been dated 200,000 BC. So here is the Ankh symbol. Looks like it's in the sun, giving off light. So, our ancestors have been doing this a very long time. Now, I want to talk about, since I showed the Confederate flag, I have a personal pet peeve with racists because, well, there's many reasons, but they should get their own symbols. They should get their own symbols. So here we have Saint Maurice the Moor. Saint Maurice the Moor is the patron saint of Germany, and here he is with the with the German eagle. And a lot of times when you see depictions of Saint Maurice the Moor, he'll have on his shield or somewhere nearby will be this eagle. But in Germany during Hitler's time, here we have the eagle, and here they're at one of their Trump rally, Nazi rallies, and there's the golden eagle, the German eagle, and this thing called the swastika. So I think everyone could agree that Nazis were racist. That kind of goes without saying. But I wish they would get their own symbols. I was watching, Mariana, the second, what's the movie with Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan? What's that movie?
Rush Hour.
Rush Hour. So I was watching Rush Hour 2, and as the movie opens up, they're taking a plane from Los Angeles to Hong Kong, and for like a split second, they show this Buddha. It's called the Buddha of Lantau, and here it is. He's got this big swastika on his neck. This man with nappy hair, with a big swastika on his neck. And here it is again. And this thing is huge. It's as big as a mountain. I wanted to show you look how big it is. It's as big as a mountain.
It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Minister Imhotep,
Yeah.
that's swastika on the Buddha and the one that the Nazis designed. Isn't there some difference in their orientation and the rotation?
Yes. Thank you for asking that, Kat. And we're going to address that pretty soon. So hold tight. That's a good question. So here, Here's another depiction. A Buddha. It's got the swastika. Here's another one. Buddha with a swastika. And they're found in China. They're found in Japan. They're found all over Asia. Ancient and modern. They're still making them. Now here in Ethiopia, on the rock carvings, Ethiopia, this is a window in the form of a swastika. Among the Akan people, this is part of their writing. These are gold monetary nuggets. Let's see if I can get that. This is part of their gold currency. And here they have the swastika there. You know, now, so Hitler and the Nazis didn't start anything. Here, this is, you know, in Europe, 700 BC. You know, and now this is answer to your question, Kat. The right spinning wheel clockwise was used to build, to encourage, to maintain. The left spinning wheel counterclockwise was used to destroy, prevent, or transform the nature of something. Mm-hmm. You know, so yeah, the way Hitler had it going was to destroy, prevent, or transform the nature of something. So these, you know, hey, this symbol is found all over the world. Hopi, among the Hopis, Christians, Malta, Tibet, Ceylon, that's India, China, Japan, Islamic, Hindu, Celt, Bali, Aztec, the Jain, excuse me, I didn't mean to click. Jainism is a religion. It's a minority religion, but it's very ancient in India. Greek and Jewish. What? Jewish?
Really?
Among the Jews, they have the swastika? My goodness, this can't be true. Why would you say that, Minister Imhotep? Because on the floors in the synagogues, in the ancient synagogues, you can find the swastika on the floor. So I wish the racists would get their own symbols. You know, and this here, it talks about this synagogue that was constructed in the 3rd century BC. Excuse me, 3rd century AD. And, you know, it's a very ancient symbol. Here it is again. Here it is again. Wow. 3 in a row. Swastikas. My goodness. It's at Capernaum. The swastikas. This is at the Church of the Nativity. Swastika. So I'm gonna leave the swastika alone. But I really don't like when I wish racists would get their own symbols. You know, don't use my symbols to promote your racism. You know, create your own symbols. So I'm talking about Witness. This is another way of identifying Wsir. So you have the hair and the squiggly line, the flowering reed, and the folding cloth. And so this is the W, this is the N, this is the I, and this is the S. Witness. And there it is again. So this witness means one who anticipates, one who is prepared, who's on guard, who passes by, who goes through, who travels, who hurries or hastens, the one or the oneness. If you think about the nature of a hare, everything hunts the hare. You know, snakes hunt the hare. You know, all predators hunt the hare, and so they have to always be prepared. They have to anticipate. You know, because if they're not on guard, you know, they could get taken out. So that's what that symbol means. Here it is again. So the hair also appears as a standard hieroglyphic or Medu sign. Venus is symbolized the very essence of life itself. It depicts a hair over a single ripple of water, the very substance from which life first appeared out of the primordial waters of noon in the ancient Egyptian or Cometian creation myths. And so Fahmy shared this with me. He said from the pyramid text 175, he said, this Venus will wash himself as the sun appears and the elder Enad shines. And then he goes on to talk about the dual nature and but remember earlier when we were talking about the two fingers, Horus will receive him at his two fingers. Again, pointing to Ascension, cleanse this Venus in the Jackal Lake and release the Ka from this Venus from the Dawat Lake. He will purge the flesh of the Ka of this Venus. So it's talking about us. You know, this is referring to Ascension. Now, we're just about to end, and I want to end on something my grandmother used to say. This is my paternal grandmother, and she used to say to me, she says, you're my sun, moon, and stars. And here we are. And sisters and brothers, I just want to tell you what we've talked about today. It's all about the sun, moon, and stars. You know, I can't even count this number of you know, after you get past trillion, I'm kind of lost. But you have all these atoms, you know, this percent oxygen, this percent carbon, this percent hydrogen, this percent nitrogen. And at the deepest level, you are the universe in human form. The nitrogen in your DNA, the calcium in your teeth, the iron in your blood, the carbon in your apple pies were made in the interiors of collapsing stars. We are made of star stuff. So, and that was by Carl Sagan. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of things that Carl Sagan used to promote because he had a problem with the Dogon. He couldn't understand how they knew so much. I think one of the things he said was that they have no business knowing. Anyway, we're all part of the stars. And this is the symbol for heaven. So when you see the 5-pointed star with a circle, that's called the Duat, D-U-A-T. You know, that's referring to heaven. And the Duat is the firmament. You know, in Psalms 19, it says, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. And here we have the different scriptures talking about the firmament in Genesis. Look at the word Genesis, gene of Isis. So, all right. And that's our conclusion. So we talked about the Christian myth related to solar anatomy. We talked about the Lord's Prayer from an Aramaic perspective, the symbolism related to Wsir, Asar, and we talked about it all being about the sun, moon, and stars. And Ashe, that concludes what we're talking about today. So I hope that it was helpful or useful to you, or will be useful to you in the future. All right. Yes, you are a superstar. That's right. What did Sly say? Everybody is a star. And then Earth, Wind, and Fire told us you're a shining star, no matter who you are, shining bright to see what you could truly be. All right. So that concludes our, thank you, Brother Tyrone. That concludes our discussion, well, not discussion, but presentation today. If there's anything that you'd like to raise or comment, now's the time. We have about 12 minutes left before the women of Wsir come in and have their meeting. So is there anyone that wants to?
Yes, I am just so amazed at the amount of wisdom that you just elude to us, constantly. And I'm so grateful for you, because there's no way I can read all these books and get all this knowledge. So I am just so grateful and so thankful. I don't know what kind of light's going on. Okay. That you give us all this information, and that, it connects, like the 12s and the 12s, and we can start to understand, and the copying that's been done, and the how they've just taken our wisdom and used it. And one thing though about the SWAT sticker,
Yes.
so it depends on how they're rotating that makes it negative.
Yeah. So one way, so in another sense, and I didn't say this, but it's connected, it means the rising sun,
Okay.
and then the other way it means the setting sun, so the positive side, everything that's positive, the way it's going, the clockwise side, to transfer. Let me go back to that, if I may, just for a minute. Okay. Let's see, where was that? Let's see. Here it is, right here. Oops, not that one. Hold on. It's this one here. So, spinning clockwise, it was used to build, encourage, maintain. That's just a partial definition. And spinning counterclockwise was used to destroy. So the way that Hitler had it going was used to destroy. And if you study the history of how they got to it, they went to India to pick up that symbol. They didn't just say, hey, let's pick this up. But it's used in a lot of cultures. Okay. All right.
Well, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
So I'll have to remember that. Yeah. Too much. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm glad that, we didn't really announce this. I'm glad that the faithful are here. Otherwise I'd be talking to myself, which is fine because it's being recorded, so somebody could see it later on. But it's good to have audience here. Thank you, Brother Tyrone, for your comments. Mariana, thank you for bigging me up in many places. And glad to see that Debbie. Kalahari, I don't know if you were able to get the video again or if it came in. I'm not sure what to do. Perhaps if you wouldn't mind contacting me later, Imhotep A at comcast.net. That's my, I'll put it in the chat. And you can send me an email and maybe I can get somebody over to you, some technical support, and maybe we can clear up some of the problems that you're experiencing. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're a little early.
Oh, okay, Kalahari, I see something now, man. I see. Take yourself off mute, brother. Perhaps you can.
Some movement there.
Yeah. Well, any other comments? Did I put too much in this? Because actually, that is a lot of information. I mean, we did the Lord's Prayer. We talked about winners. I tend to put a lot of stuff in it. Sometimes I can go.
I think I think it may have been a lot for some people because we're all at different levels of our studies and understanding. But for the most part, it all came together. It all made a lot of sense. And I would just add that and thank you, Minister Imhotep, because what you are doing is truly the essence of ministering. I mean, he's a minister and he's ministering, and so we are the beneficiaries of it. And so, thank you. I enjoy all of your presentations.
Well,
Yes.
good, thanks. So, Celeste is saying, can you post the English version of the Lord's Prayer? Yeah, how can I do that?
Imho, to me,
Yeah.
one of the key things from your presentation is the fact that, we feel like the world is so big and, and that there are all these, sort of different cultures and that they all represent all these different perspectives. But then your presentation brings it down to, just one sort of honestly universal truth that just is continually expressed in different ways, but it really brings everything together in a really amazing way. I just really appreciate that. Like you can go so many places and see the same symbols and that they carry, sort of a certain kind of weight, but even the languages, even that tree was really, really involved. But in the end, everything is linked together
Yes.
instead of everything being separate, which is what you really think about when you look at all these different languages and cultures. Like you just pulled everything together on so many different levels. It was really, it is a lot, but the world is a lot, but the world is interconnected and tied together in a really deep and spiritual way.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you for saying that. I want to bring that slide back up because we as African people are told that we had to wait for Europe to bring us the we had to wait for Europe to bring us the so-called alphabet. And this is showing the transition how it came. So it was a Phoenician or a Canaanite by the name of Cadmus who brought the Greek alphabet. He brought the alphabet to the Greek. I'm sure they didn't call it the alphabet. That's Greek. And so they brought that to the Greeks. And then when you see it trickling down. This Etruscan is Roman, Latin, and so we're using the Latin alphabet now. So English is in the Latin alphabet. French, all of those European languages. Cyrillic, that's Russian. All of that is Gothic. All of that is coming from some black folks.
Yeah.
The people that were cursed by God. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. So and then so we have like the Medu-Neter script, and then there's 3 versions of it. There's erotic, demotic. We have the Akan script. The Akan people have a script. There's the Vai script, which they found in South America. There's the there's a script in Zimbabwe. There's the Amharic script. So we have all of these different scripts, and there's a video that Dr. Obenga is talking about, and he's saying that producing a script is probably one of the hardest things to do. you know, to take a symbol and say this symbol represents this sound, and you know, all of that. So anyway, I can go on. I feel like I'm rambling now, but it's about 6:28. I want to thank you all. I appreciate you coming. And next week we're going to have more information on Bitcoins.